Okay, we're here to talk about another game. This time it's Martells versus Baratheons. We're trying out some of the new Season 4 changes. Queensmen, Kingsmen with the Stanis Rightful Heir list. And I'm using Obara in Bastards Girls. Some of the Season 4 changes have been actually really interesting. For Martells, we didn't get a whole lot, but Sand Diplomacy did get improved, I guess. And then Oberyn, which is one of my favorite commanders, his two worst cards got improved quite a bit. So that'll be pretty interesting to get on the table. But for right now, this game at least, I'll be playing Obara. I want to give her a shake. I haven't played her before. Reckless Strikes is always an interesting card to have. And Desert Preparation seems like just another control card that can be used pretty well to deflect incoming damage, along with the base deck for Martells. So my list is Obara in Bastards Girls with Outriders, Starfall Knights, and Spearmen. In these Spearmen, I have the Daemon Sand attachment, the 1-point attachment, to help block orders and tactics cards coming down, and specifically in this matchup to try and stop getting destroyed by Final Strike. My NCU package I think is pretty typical. I have Arianne, she's obviously amazing. The new version of Ellaria, which has been toned down a little bit. I think she's a lot more fair for 4 points. And then Arys in the last slot there. I could take Varys. I think Varys is probably a very good choice. I've chosen Arys for the control of swords and trying to maintain rising temps as long as I can. I toggle between those two pretty much in every list. Can't really decide on which one I like the most. Probably Varys, but tonight it'll be Arys. On my opponent's side, there are Queensmen with Stanis Rightful Heir, Kingsmen with Bryen, R'hllor Lightbringers with Davos, a naked unit of Wardens, Patchface, Alester, and Crescent. For terrain setup, I went with Palisade. The Palisade that splits the board up into 1/3, 2/3. I find finding that deploying a Palisade in this way separates the board in such that your opponent can only squish so many units behind the Palisade on the right-hand side, leaving the left-hand side of the board pretty wide open. And since I typically take multiple units of cavalry, that gives me a ton of space to maneuver. I place down the stakes on the other side so that if I got stuck on one side of the table or the other, specifically the side I'm on, I have a protected objective. And this will also deter him from deploying wide out my way on this open side. Now, if he did happen to choose to do that, I held Obara as my last drop, which I would have lined up on the other side of the Palisade to go straight for that objective to try and take whatever unit he placed there, as I feel like she can outfight 2 of the 4 units on my opponent's side. The Queensmen and Kingsmen are probably too difficult for my list to remove, unless I'm getting multiple charges, rising temps, and all the control on them. But that'll be unlikely to be able to happen until late in the game. For our deployments, he's decided to go with the Kingsmen on the far right. Next to them are Queensmen. Next to them are the R'hllor Lightbringers. And then anchoring his line, he has the Wardens. This has kind of presented me with a bit of an opportunity because I feel like the Wardens are actually the easiest unit to take out, although he does have quite a bit of sustain. So I'll have to sort of work on that a little bit. For myself, I dropped down the Outriders first, more or less center. I like to do that because they're fast enough to get over to one side of the board or the other. And then I dropped the Spearmen lined up with my objective, which is a pretty obvious thing to do. And then I slid my Knights in to a position where they can come up the board. They're fast, speed 6. I want them to have the widest amount of board to be able to swing around and eventually gain a flank on my opponent's line. And then my last drop was Obara for reasons of coming over to the other side of the palisade. Now, I've lined my whole line up so that I'm not on the other side of the palisade, so I can sort of focus down all of my power on these outside 2 units, which I feel are the easiest to remove. So this is after round 1. You can see that I've sort of pushed my cavalry up here on the left-hand side. The spearmen are ready to come on to the objective, and I've left everyone within 12 inches of them so that I can use Damien's order if I need to go in, so I don't get final striked. Now I'm going to be putting Arianne onto Davos to block some of the sustain, and then as soon as Stannis' unit activates the Queensmen, I'm going to get Rising Temps on them. And then I'll try to go to the swords with Arys and hold them off there. Now my opponent does have Patchface, so he's going to be looking for Rising Temps every round until he's out of tokens. He also has Alester, so he's going to be trying to open up swords to be able to get Rising Temps off me, so I can't camp on there. And then he has Crescent. So Crescent's actually pretty good tech here, as he can start the round that normally Arys would be coming off on, and I would be going first, reclaiming the swords, which would hold Rising Temps on for another whole round. But he can beat me to swords on that round. It does end up killing his NCU, but it is a pretty darn good way of clearing Rising Temps off, typically on the round where I stop his healing, and I can transfer Arianne to holding off, mark target and those orders. So this is actually a pretty clutch NCU for him, and his timing of using that will have to be pretty specific, which I think he does actually a really good job of in this game. He marches up his Kingsmen to claim this objective. The Queensmen are sort of anchoring the center of his line. He's moved Davos over to be able to cover both units, so no matter what I go into here, I will be eating some of those vicious shots and inevitably getting the balanced panic. But the Wardens are sort of somewhat out in the open and susceptible, so I'm planning on hopping on them and trying to remove them fairly quickly. So this is the shot at the end of round 2, going into round 3. As you can see, the plan is working. I managed to remove the Wardens by doing sort of a triple charge here. I got Obara in, and then I managed to retreat her back out and then charge her back in again. And then the Knights went in as well. The Knights rolled actually pretty poorly. Took some counter-strike hits, and then I took some shots from Davos, which put them down to, I think they're at like 5 wounds right now. The Queensmen managed to pick up the line of sight on Obara's unit and charge in, but I got Rising Temps on them and then Dune Tactics, so really mitigated the amount of damage they can do, although they're not the big damage dealers like the Kingsmen are. The Kingsmen have pivoted off the objective a little bit here and got themselves within 1 inch of the palisade, so that if swords opens up, they can remove that and join the fight. My objective holders are just touching that corpse pile and then reaching out to pick up all of my units within 12 so that I can reset the order and block final strike again. Clutch here, my opponent did some very clever measuring, and he managed to put his archers close enough to the end of the map here towards him so that I can't flank charge him, and there's not enough room between my knights and his archers for me to place my Outriders to be able to get on them to block some shots here and start removing that unit. So that was actually a pretty clutch play. And then Obara's in a bit of a pickle here with fighting the Queensmen. She doesn't really want to be fighting that unit. So at the earliest opportunity, I'm going to try and retreat her out and open up to try to go into the archers. So I have a 1-point lead. I'm going to try and get a 2-point lead and see if I can roll that out to the end of the game. But every time I remove a unit, specifically these 2 outside units, the Wardens and the Archers, he's going to continue to put the corpse pile back towards his right-hand corner here, and then move his bigger, tankier units on there, sort of blocking me out of them. it'll come to a point in the game where he's going to be scoring 2 to my 1, and that's actually going to be a kind of a big deal breaker here, trying to push forward to win this game. So this is at the end of round 3 going into round 4. You can see I managed to get onto the archers with my lance cavalry and reckless strikes. And I've healed them up a little bit. Obara took kind of a fair beating, but I did manage to retreat her and get her to a position where she couldn't be charged using the palisade. And as you can see, my opponent does exactly what I was saying. He's pushing back and covering the 2 corpse piles that have been made now. And there's one kind of underneath his Kingsman there, you can barely see it, and there's another one underneath his Queensman. And they're both sort of blocking me out from being able to get at them. So now I have to sort of either climb onto this objective, which I'm sort of pushing Obara over to, or try to make one of them fail a panic test, which is fairly unlikely. Now with the Season 4 changes of those 2 units, the Queensman specifically, I can't expend vulnerable or panic tokens unless I have the crowns, which is a zone that I don't even want. So it's actually really difficult to remove that unit now, even with reckless strikes, and their 3-up save, like they're just so tanky. It's such an incredible change, and it really makes this matchup quite difficult. Not that it was easy before, but it makes it even more difficult now. He's also managed to get out his attack approach on both units, and has been piling out tokens on me with mark target and all that. So it's actually been pretty difficult to get any wounds on them, and he's been managing to do auto wounds against mine. I've been layering lots of control onto Stannis' unit, blocking orders, rising temps, getting Rhinish Vengeance on theirs. So been sort of picking away at that unit a little bit, really controlling his output, and then just staying out of the way of the Kingsmen so that they don't get into the fight. I managed to pull ahead on score here, although at the end of this round he hasn't placed his tokens down yet, but he's going to score 2, going to 4-3. All right, here is at the end of round 5. What I've had to do is destroy my own palisade, and in doing so he sort of saw what I was going to do, so he moved his Kingsman back onto that objective, blocking me from being able to come and get it. So I had to resort to flank charging his Queensmen and trying to get them to fail panic to cough up one of those tokens so that I can slow his scoring down. I have no intentions of actually removing any of these units, just been putting attacks into them, trying to just get them to fail panic, which is fairly unlikely with the Weirwood tree here. But it's sort of a last-ditch effort to try and slow his scoring down so I can get to round 6 and then just hold my lead here. Obara is going to heal up and threaten the Kingsman flank with some maneuvering, but they're kind of lining up here to flank charge my Outriders. There's not a whole lot I can do about that. That was sort of a last-minute charge to hopefully slow his scoring down. I knew I was going to end up either completely losing them, or I was hoping to maybe Dune tactics down and keep them from dying, but it ends up being enough attacks go through, and then I fail my panic test, crit fail, and lose them here at the next round. So that's what ends up happening. I don't have another picture for the last round, but the Kingsmen come in, they flank charge my Outriders. They do enough wounds, and I crit fail my panic, and they fail and die. But Obara comes in. She flank charges the Kingsmen. They do end up failing their panic, so they don't score on this objective here. And I end up winning out this game by 1 point. It was a pretty tight game. This matchup is not very comfortable for Obara. I don't really want to be fighting those types of units, and Baratheons are sort of Oberyn's kind of matchup. You can block a lot of their sustain and stuff like that, so I'd rather drop him into this, but I wanted to give Obara a shot and see how she went. She was pretty fun to play. Bastard's Girls are really fun to play. The list overall, it did what it needed to do, but I had to play aggressively, which isn't really the Martell way so much, in order to sort of get ahead of these units, because Baratheons now are even more tanky than they were before, which is pretty incredible. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this battle report. I've enjoyed making it, and we'll put one out again here pretty soon. Happy game. Bye.